a roughneck, and also learned about drilling over in East Texas when he got out of school. He worked for the Railroad Commission and eventually worked for a company that he learned how to invent. Well, he invented fishing tools, which were drilling tools, and invented a couple that got him set up in the ranching business. And that was when he decided to follow his passion, his hobby of raising cattle. But he had also come from a ranching family. So my mom will now fill in all blanks.
I won't fill in many gaps. When I was in the 7th grade in 1951, my dad was able, because he did invent those tools, our dad, this is my brother Scott sitting over here.
Little brother.
Little brother Scott. Dad said, okay, I'm ready to retire. And I think he was about, I don't know, 38 years old. Anyway, he was very young. And it was fortunate because he'd always wanted to be a rancher again. He had 4 brothers. They were raised all over the West. 2 of them were born in Alaska, including my dad. All down the West Coast. They lived in Mexico because their father was a geologist and a mining engineer. So they experienced the Old West to a certain degree. And they had eventually a small ranch in New Mexico where every summer they would cowboy for other ranchers. And so his dream was to become a rancher, and as soon as he could, he became one. He bought his first piece of property with 650 acres between Dripping Springs and Wimberley and Driftwood, sort of sandwiched right in there. And I want my brother to correct me because he's the nuts and bolts part of the family where the ranch is concerned. And I have sort of drifted off into Nerdville, where I'm happily ensconced in all sorts of birding concerns and other things. But in any case, back in the 50s, we bought this first piece of property. It had an old house on it that was part log cabin that was built in 1863. And it was papered inside with newspapers, and there were chickens inside, and there was a dump right out the back door and an outdoor john. So it was pretty primitive, but we loved being there. We bought it in, I'm sure that RB remembers this well, during the big, what we called the big drought, which was like a 7-year drought in the 50s. And it was a dust bowl. So the good part of that was, for us anyway, we could buy that very cheaply. And he added eventually 8 parcels together to make finally the ultimate size of the ranch, which was over 6,000 acres. And it's been reduced somewhat, but in the meanwhile, we've sold 2/3 of it to the Conservancy of the development rights, and we still have the ability to live there, ranch there, see that other people get to use it as well. Is that okay?
RB, you've got so many stories. I'll just ask you to begin wherever you want to begin, but I must interject and say that when Scott and I grew up as friends, and when I visit these lovely ranch homes, for lack of a better word, they truly are the repositories of a rich, rich history of all the artifacts in these ranch homes. But when I first went to RB and Julia's home, my goodness, I thought I'd walked into the Texas Ranger Museum. And I believe RB in one of his past lives has been a special ranger. So